Okay, hello everyone. Good evening.
Hello.
I would like to call to order the October 12th Norwalk Public Library Board of Directors meeting. In attendance, we have Sherelle Harris, Janie Williams, Geraldo Williams, Mary Mann, Ralph Bloom, Patsy Brescia, Laurel Peterson, Alex Knopp. Tom Cullen is absent as of now. And we're gonna just do, is there anyone here with public comments? I just want
No public comments.
No public comments. Okay, great. And we will just go, can we have just go to the approval of the September 14th meeting minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion to move the approval?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Ralph,
Second.
Alex. Any comments? Edits? Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. The minutes have been approved. I would just like to flip the agenda and move the library cafe RFP to the end of the agenda and start with the library director's report. I know we do have a guest here to say a few words. So Sherelle, you want to take it from here?
Certainly. So during a couple of meetings ago, we had talked about having the electric car charging stations at the Sono Library, and it looks like we are here. I met with Bill. Bill, you can pronounce your last name so I don't mess it up.
It's pronounced Natick, silent H.
Got it. So we have Bill Natick here with us. He is our ADA compliance guru. I learned probably more than I needed to know at our last meeting, so I hope I got an A+. So he's going to answer questions. Bill, I'm going to pull up the drawings that you gave me so we can point to the drawings. So he's going to talk about our lack of compliance and how they're going to straighten that out in the parking lot using the electric charging stations. So I will pull up the screen, I'll share the screen, and then Bill, if you want to give them some highlights. Hold on one second.
Bill, I'm sorry, could you just state your position again?
Yeah, I am the ADA coordinator for the city of Norwalk. I'm certified by the state of Connecticut as well as federally certified to be an ADA coordinator. And Sherelle, I actually have
You have yours?
I have some slides that I could share
Okay.
that are probably better than
Awesome.
that drawing.
Okay.
If
So
you'd
if you
like.
want to go ahead and hit share.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Not at all. Not at all.
Just a little backstory on the whole project is that the property, although it's leased by the city of Norwalk and is considered city property, and we're talking about the South Norwalk branch of the library, it is actually owned by the South Norwalk Electric and Water Company, who had an employee request for an EV, electric vehicle charging station for their vehicle. It's a good idea for municipal property anyway to have it, and it's a great location for it. So they hired a contractor who is going to install an EV charging station. The property management company for the city of Norwalk, Guardian, specifically Neil Rennie, reached out to me to make sure that we were meeting standards for ADA, Americans with Disabilities, accessibility. And so although these are new and not yet quite federally mandated, they are going to be mandated requirements soon enough. it's basically minimum 1 or 5% of all EV charging stations need to meet the standards for accessibility for a person with a disability, or in worst case scenario, a person with a wheelchair to be able to use it independently. So I'll share my screen. I hope. I'm going to try.
If
Bear with
not, I have your backup, so.
Okay, let's see how I do here. Okay, so let's go here. Okay, so I'll try to be brief. There are currently 2 parking spaces in the rear of the parking lot at the Sono branch identified as accessible. I've done a site inspection there, among other things. Those 2 spaces are, for the most part, okay, except that the ADA requires that at least one of those spaces be a van accessible space. In a nutshell, this slide explains that a van accessible space needs to be larger than a regular vehicle space. They're allowed to share an access aisle. So a van space can be 8 feet wide with an 8-foot access aisle, or it can be 11 foot wide with a 5-foot access aisle. So, and it needs to be identified as a van accessible space. 1 of every 6 accessible spaces needs to be van accessible. And that's to allow for a person using a wheelchair that has a lift on a van. The access aisle needs to be a minimum of 5 feet in most cases. And the spaces need to be identified with posted signs as being an accessible parking space, or in this case, being a van accessible space. And basically what this slide tells you is that they're not exclusive. So in other words, if someone with a placard on their car parks in a van accessible space and it's not a van, the police can't issue them a summons. It's just, it's there for the person to use as a van accessible space if needed. So at the Sono Library, we have 2 spaces in the rear. 1 is supposed to be van accessible. They are not. This was pointed out in a survey conducted. The city hired a consulting firm in 2013. It was federally mandated to conduct this survey. It was identified as non-compliant back in 2013, and I've confirmed that it has not been corrected. So there's 2 spaces there, but due to the size of those 2 spaces and the access aisle, they don't meet the requirements of being van accessible. The first space is 9 feet wide. The access aisle in the middle is 7.5. The second space is also about 9 feet wide. So they should be changed. So when they called me to come in the middle of this project, it was actually perfect timing, because I said, you know what, those spaces need to be fixed anyway. So looking at it from overhead, they were discussing installing an EV charger. Can you see my mouse, Cheryl?
Yeah, yes.
I can
we
see it, yeah.
So they're discussing running electrical from this part of the building to somewhere over here. So it worked out really well. And I said, all right, simple solution would be to take this space and widen it to the requirements of van accessible space, add an access aisle, and install an EV charger in the access aisle. That way, the charger serves 2 parking spaces. It could serve 1 as an accessible parking space and an accessible EV charger, and the other space to the right as just a regular parking space or regular EV charging space. So what I've done here, it's a little bit better than the drawing I gave you, Cheryl. We're gonna take the second non-compliant space here, widen it to make it 11 feet wide, add a 5-foot access aisle, and install the EV charger in this location here where you see the blue line. They're going to indent the curb around it so that it is installed at ground level. And So the space on the right will be identified as an EV space, EV charging space. This space will be identified as a van accessible parking space, also an EV charging space, and also identified as used last. And I'll just briefly explain that. The size of the lot requires only one space be accessible. The city of Norwalk's approach to minimum standards is we don't want to stay at minimum. We'd rather be a little bit above. So in a nutshell, you're going to lose one regular parking space, but you're going to create an accessible EV charging space and a regular EV charging space. The use last designation allows this space, it's kind of on the honor system. So if you have someone that needs an accessible parking space, but doesn't need to charge, we hope they're going to park in the first spot. And if someone is using the EV charging space already, regular vehicle, and someone else comes in the lot and also wants to charge their car, they can use this space even if they're not a placard car. So this is kind of a multi-use space. It satisfies the federal government as far as having a van accessible space. It covers an accessible EV charging space, but it allows for some flexibility. There's examples of requirements by Title II of the ADA, which is federal civil rights law. State and local government offices, public parks and municipal buildings are required to provide accessible EV charging stations. And this is kind of a slide of what it's going to look like. So that second accessible parking space is going to be here with the access aisle here. The curb will be indented here to allow for the charging space, charging unit. The space on the right will be a regular charging space. So that's kind of what it's going to look like. And it meets the requirement of both. It will be 11 feet wide. So that's an accessible EV charging space is the same basic requirements as a van space. So we're killing two birds with one stone. And the reason for it being wider is to accommodate the different types of vehicles that we have. Currently, there's no standard for electric vehicle charging. Some have them on the passenger side, some are on the driver's side, some are in the front, some are in the back. And a person in a wheelchair needs to be able to move around the vehicle freely and independently use the EV charging if that's what they're there to do. So that's why the space is wider. That's why the access aisle includes the charger. And as far as use last, these are just examples of what the federal government says could be used to sort of explain the fact that this is an accessible EV charging space. Please use it last. And there's just different examples of how we may be doing that. So basically, the independent contractor is picking up most of the tab on this. The city of Norwalk is really only covering changing the lines a little bit on these two parking spaces. So, and again, I'm happy to say that we are killing two birds with one stone. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. These spaces could be used 24/7,
That is correct.
and they are not exclusive for library users.
That is also correct. The entire lot really.
Okay,
is not
so
exclusive.
it can mean that we really are losing two spaces when we are very shy on spaces to begin with. So I've been opposed to this concept from the beginning, and I still don't think it is wise for the library. Our parking is a constant issue, and we're trying to negotiate future with the Webster lot. And we're just encroaching again on the ability for people to use the library.
Okay, you're not losing 2 parking spaces, you're losing 1 parking space, and you're gaining a van accessible space, which has been required by the federal
Yeah, that's,
government all
yeah,
along.
that's wonderful. I'm totally in support of that, but
Mhm.
the ability for people to come, 2 different cars to use those spaces for their
Mhm.
own use and not intending to go to the library is a detriment to, I believe, to the library.
Okay,
We voted as a board to have 2 stations, so that issue has been decided. Do I understand from you, first of all, the drawings look very helpful, thank you. So will it allow 4 cars to be charged under this
No,
scenario?
it allows for 2 vehicles to be charged, and they're not exclusive. They're currently, there is no state law to permit someone from using an EV charging space as just a regular parking space if there's no other parking spaces available. So
Could
there's
you-
no restrictions about using those spaces.
Could you put
The
up
other,
the
the other
chart that you
current
showed
issue is
again?
there's no restrictions on using the parking lot right now for anyone that's not using the library. Anybody can park in that lot right now.
We've already decided this issue, Bill. We voted as a
Mhm.
board. Could you pull up again the slide showing the, it was one of the last slides you showed, showing both charging stations?
Sure, I hope I can find it. I was lucky to get that going once. You're gonna make me do it twice now?
You did so well.
Let me do the
Yeah,
best.
because it had 2 charging stations on it, and I thought
Right.
we voted for 1 with 2 chargers, isn't that?
Well, it's 1 charger. But the federal government requires that if you're gonna provide EV charging stations, a minimum of 5% or no less than 1 is required to meet accessibility standards and be able to be used independently by a person with a disability. So you can't, there's no avoiding this. It's federal law. And I apologize. I'm trying to find the slide. Let me just go.
Well, the reason why I asked to see it was that it looked to me like we have 2 charging stations,
Mhm.
and I thought I saw charging cords coming out of each side of both stations. And that's why I was asking whether that could accommodate 4 electric vehicles.
Okay, let me try to pull it up. Bear with me a second. I closed it too soon, so
I mean, it looked very attractive, I must say.
I appreciate that. Let me see if I can pull it up one more time for you. Here we go. So you are referring to
It was the last one.
The next one.
this
Yes.
one.
That
No,
one.
discount the other charging station in
Yeah.
this. This is the slide that I borrowed from the US Access Board, and the information that the other slides that I was sharing are from the US Access Board .gov website, and they are a part of the Department of Justice, and they write the design and architectural standards for accessibility. So,
But
so
Bill, so we won't have these two, we'll only have one, correct?
you'll have one machine
Right.
Okay.
that will have
Yeah.
cords to charge two vehicles.
Okay, I
So
was confused
basically, yeah, can
by
you
the
just
picture.
use your cursor so they can see the other one with the red car?
That one's not
You
going to
can
be
look
there.
at that one, yes, look at
Right.
the
Forget,
the other,
forget
the
that's
two with
there.
the
I
blue
apologize.
cars.
Mhm.
or the
And
one-
is there in the machine a credit card or Apple Pay thing to pay for the charge?
That's a very good question, and I should know the answer to that. Next week, I am having an on-site meeting with the contractor, SNU representative, as well as somebody from City of Norwalk's property management. So sometimes these are free. And sometimes they require a debit card. I'm not sure what they're going to offer here.
I think in the meeting where we had the presentation from the we
Mike
had that
Casella.
presentation. Yeah, from someone from the city, or I can't remember who it was, but they said that it was not going to be free anymore, that
Mm.
there was going to be the vendor's charge point that's
Mhm.
going to be using it. And I know I've been to places with charge point and it's Apple Pay or credit card, like you said, Alex. So
Okay,
that's what I recall from our presentation our last presentation.
Mhm.
and Bill, one last thing, a little bit off the topic. First of all, thank you. This is very helpful to see what's going on. I think you've come up with a very creative solution, so thank you. Obviously, there's going to be a number of changes going on at the parking lot at the main library branch. I had suggested to Mayor Rilling 2 years ago that when the federal government and the state started to talk about vastly increasing the number of chargers, that we have one at the main library branch also.
Mhm.
So I just want to say, I hope you are involved early on in the design of the lot with the traffic and mobility department from the city. So that, we can come up with a couple of good stations at the main branch also.
I hope so as well. I appreciate that. Thank you. I have had that conversation with Michael Casella, who is the person that I've been dealing with from the firm that's going to be installing these. And they were not aware that as a Title II entity, the city of Norwalk is required by federal law to make these chargers accessible wherever they're installed on municipal property. And so, although he was reluctant to have that involvement, he realizes now and understands and appreciates the fact that it's going to be easier for them to consult with me prior to constructing these rather than having to go back and make any corrections later. The federal government requires any property that is altered in any way, any municipal property that is altered in any way, and installing an EV charger is an alteration. Relining a parking lot is an alteration. As soon as you do that, you're required to bring that property up to minimum standards. And once again, it's the feeling of the city of Norwalk and the department that I work for, that we're trying to avoid working at minimum anything. We'd like to provide a little bit better. And again, the Americans with Disability Act is not an architectural law. It's a civil rights law for equal access. This is something that's coming, whether we like it or not. EV chargers are coming, and accessibility has to be part of that. So we're actually very fortunate that one of the first places chosen is going to be a municipal property. We do have some of these stationed in the municipal garages now, but we're in the process of updating those with this same contractor, and I'll be working with them as we do that as well.
So are there other
Lately,
stations in
sorry,
South
just to-
Norwalk as well, too?
So
Are there
just to-
other charging stations in South Norwalk?
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Are
hear you.
there other charging stations in South Norwalk? Or will ours be the first?
As I think it, well, I don't know, as far as on municipal property, it should be one of the first.
That's Moynihan, she knows.
well, I know in East Norwalk, but it seems like, oh, I would hope they would have them in the train station parking lot, but I
They
don't know
have them,
about that.
as far
At
as
the moment,
I was
at the
told
moment,
by,
there's one on Water Street. It's on Water Street.
Yeah, I've seen that
At the
one too.
moment.
Yeah, yeah.
I reached out to the Transportation, Mobility and Parking Department about that, and they said that they have units at the Yankee Doodle Garage, at the Maritime Garage, and they believe they have some at the South Norwalk train station, but weren't sure. I've done a site inspection at the South Norwalk train station. I don't recall seeing any EV chargers there, but regardless, they're coming.
Well,
When
it's great
when
that, just to
is-
finish, can I just
oh,
finish one?
sorry, Alex, go ahead.
It's great that the South Norwalk Electrical Works is funding these. Obviously, the main library branch is not within the service territory of the South Norwalk Electrical Works,
Hmm.
and is serviced by a commercial electrical service,
Mhm.
CL&P. So this will be an entirely city-based project, and I know that the state has been giving out significant grants to municipalities for EV stations. So I hope, again, that you can be involved early on, and we can have a number of them at the main branch when that lot becomes city property.
Well, and again, I thank you, and I feel the same way. I hope I think I've pretty much made myself known to all the departments that need to know who I am. And so again, I've only been working for the city for about a year, but I have, tried to gather as much knowledge as I possibly can and certifications, and have made myself a resource to DPW and TMP. So they're right down the hall from my office. They know who I am. I'm in touch with them constantly. So yeah, I think we're going to see these on pretty much all municipal properties eventually. I know they're coming to City Hall soon. And we're going to have the same situation there. We're going to need to provide accessible units wherever these units go. And as far as South Norwalk Library is concerned, this is really, in my opinion, a home run, because the property is actually not owned by the city. As I understand that the city leases the property from the Sono Electric and Water Company, and we're getting a freebie on this one because it's their property, they're having it installed.
Geraldo, you have a
Yeah,
question?
Two quick questions. Bill, what is your phone number?
I'm not sure I want to give that out.
I have an ADA thing separate from this.
No, I'm just teasing.
Reach out.
My number is 203-854-7221.
Okay, thank you.
And if anybody, best way to reach me is via email,
Okay,
and it's WHNATUK at norwalkct.gov.
and then my other question was, and you may have said this and I'm, not clear, but someone that has disability with a tag to be park that allows them to park in a disabled parking lot. If they're not driving an EV car, will they be able to use this parking space?
So yes, the designation as used last is a recommendation by the federal government. As you know, hopefully people that if they're using it as an accessible space only and they're not charging, and the other accessible space is open, then hopefully they'll see that use last sign and park in the space to the left, which is designated for accessible. On the same token, if that space is being used and someone who's not charging a vehicle but needs an accessible parking space will have it. So, you know, and again, the third side of that coin, if there is a third side, is the fact that if someone needs to charge a vehicle and they do not have an accessible placard on their car, but the other charging space is being used, they can use that space without receiving a ticket. But we hope that people will, the signage, most people I would think would avoid it. I would say the majority of people will avoid parking in that space if they're not using it as an accessible EV charging space.
And there's some sign there that would make people aware that that's a disabled, accessible parking
Absolutely,
space
yes, it
or
will be
reserved.
just
Okay.
exactly the examples that I showed you, that some form of that. It will be identified in blue and white. It will
Yeah.
have the ISA, the wheelchair symbol on it, and it will be designated as an EV charging space, and then it will have a small rider sign or be an additional wording on there that'll say use last.
Okay.
So in other words, by demand.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, any further questions? Because I think we're pretty good here.
Bill, thank you so much. I think this was great for the board, one, to meet you, and two, to really have your presentation to help them understand what's happening. So we really appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you so much, Bill.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Have a wonderful evening.
Great.
You all as well.
Thanks.
Terrell, can I just add a couple things before you go on to your next
Of
item?
course, yeah.
So you'll obviously keep us updated on you know, the timing of the installation and the lines and all that. And to Patsy's point about, you know, the kind of the fact that we're losing a spot, and you know, we've talked before about, you know, the importance of getting some more parking. And so we've reached out to Jim Travers and Jessica Vonacek about setting up a meeting to get that conversation going. And you know, you saw Mary, Janie, Sherelle, and Patsy, who expressed an interest last time in being all of us to be part of this gathering. So I got an email from reply vacate out of office reply from Jim saying he's out until the 26th. So you know, most likely that will be happening in November sometime. So I just wanted to add that in as part of this discussion. So go ahead.
So we're gonna, the RFP will definitely go last after mine, or did you want? I thought.
No, we'll just do it after you're done.
Okay. So, basically, just very quickly, we definitely we're a main polling site, every year for the first district. And so, basically what's gonna happen, they will come in, on Sunday, November 5th, and that's when they will set up all of their equipment. On Monday, they will then configure the room for the election site. And then Tuesday, we just have to let, you know, the workers in at 5:15 a.m. Because, you know, the election begins at 6. And so that's basically it. It'll, you know, be very simple. We will have a police presence. You know, they're striving to have someone, you know, in the building as opposed to just sitting outside. So, I think that it ran pretty well the last time, and I have no doubt that it will, run smoothly again. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on the main library as the polling site.
Yes.
Alex,
Yeah, I am also urging, and I hope other people will, the fact that the parking lot is not currently available is a big detriment to this
Yeah,
issue. And we worked very hard to get the library as a voting site. And one of the supporting elements was the availability of adjacent parking. Under the eminent domain statute, there's a very tight time deadline, but it might be possible to have the eminent domain process completed by the election day that allows the taker, which is the city, to assume control of the property even before a court determines the value that the city must pay to Mr. Milligan. I'm not sure. It's a very tight time deadline that begins when the council voted in September. It can happen before 30 days. It can happen after 6 months, but between 30 days from the vote in September, it's possible if the city really works hard. So I would really encourage the city and Sherelle, if you have any ability to talk to the law department to try to make sure they're aware that we need that lot for election day. If that doesn't happen, I would hope that the city or some of us could make a initiative with Jason Milligan to ask him to open the lot for election day. There are, of course, complications about insurance coverage and stuff like that, but I think we need to leave no stone unturned to try to get the lot available. Also, as you probably know, one of the excellent initiatives of the Norwalk Library is the Independent Author Day, which is happening for the 3 days prior to the election. And there will be 100 independent authors setting up. I'm sure Laurel knows this very well. And my wife, Betty, is one of them. Laurel is one of them. There'll be 100 authors coming from all over the state to set up their booths. Each of them will be lugging, a collection of their books for sale and display. Last year, I know it was very helpful to have the parking so that these vendors didn't have to lug these heavy loads of books from the Yankee Doodle Garage. They wouldn't have to pay as they would at the Yankee Doodle Garage. So both for the Independent Author Weekend and for Election Day, I think it's important, again, that we make sure the city leaves no stone unturned. It may not be possible because it may not be within their control. I've tried to map out the dates, and I think it might have been possible had they started soon. I don't know the situation now, but the law department could be asked to do that. And then finally, if it's not possible, then I think that the library board ought to ask the parking authority not to do enforcement on Mott Avenue during the 3 days of the Independent Author Day, so that if they can't park in the lot because it's not available, and if the Eagles lot gets filled up, I mean, there are 30 spaces there, and we're talking about 100 independent authors, that at least they could park on Mott Street without having to worry about running out every 3 hours to put money in the meter. These are two big events for the library. Unfortunately, the timing about the city's acquisition of the lot, while a very positive thing that we've supported, unfortunately leaves a little bit of an issue here. So again, I think doing all we can to support these two events in terms of parking would be very important.
Got it. So last year I did, for the Independent Authors Day, I did work with the parking authority. I believe, they wanted to put, like, maybe we can put a sign, in the car if somebody's an independent author, to see if they can, if they'll bypass if they see the sign for the day. So I'll revisit that with them.
And Cheryl, on the election day issue,
Mhm.
obviously the town clerk is in charge, so you might engage Rick McQuaid in that quest to see if we can, use the land in question, the Milligan property, to help you with that if it's at all possible.
Okay, thank you.
And also the redevelopment parking lot as well. I mean, there is,
Right.
right now, there's no sign. There are a lot of spaces in there, and I think it's underutilized sometimes. And if we could, if there were some kind of, if we could work with the parking authority, especially on those 2 days, to get some kind of placard pointing out, similar to the one that we have over at the Eagles that points into parking, to show parking, because I think, well, obviously, I mean, the Independent Authors Day is on a weekend, or Friday, Saturday, I think, right?
Yeah.
Is that how
Yeah.
it is?
Friday, Saturday,
Yeah.
Sunday.
So it shouldn't be
And
an
then,
issue.
but I mean, the election might, be something different, but,
Yeah, it's two different things with the same
But I
similar
mean, just
needs.
because I think that, that people just, it's not as well marked, so. Yeah, those
I
are all,
remember Jessica saying when we asked for signage, that because it's not yet a city property, that we couldn't put signage up there. Perhaps, I don't know, if we can have like a sandwich board, or something, but I know we couldn't put signage like on the property because Ralph brought up a good point last time about the in and out, how people go in and out.
yeah,
That's something totally different that I think they should fix. But I guess identifying it as library property, she said we couldn't do that as yet.
yeah. But I think, yeah, maybe a sandwich board or something. I don't know if you could talk to somebody over the city about that, just especially for these two big
Of course.
parking events. Yeah.
Sounds good. Anything else? Okay, so the Sono repurposing project, we have a date to begin of October 31st. So that's like 2 weeks and 2 days, and really excited. And the people, they're just really nice to work with. The man, was it Titan, has been in like, he comes in often measuring, doing things, just really excited. They did a good job in Stanford, and they were really happy, with their work. So I'm really excited. The thing that I need to do is find out from the city, like how we notice, that first floor will be closed. So the children's department will remain open, and we'll keep the auditorium open, for programming. But I just need to know, like, do we give them 2 weeks? Like, how do we notice that the first floor of the building will be closed? So I hope to find that out tomorrow. Any questions? Let's see, we went over the Sono charging station. The GNOV renovation is completed. We just they just, are tweaking a few things like paint on the windows and, let's see, data ports and things like that, but it looks pretty nice. I don't know if you can see the screen or not, but, it looks pretty nice. We have the third classroom. So now we just have to furnish it. And, yeah, so good things happening. So we
That
have
looks
this.
nice from way when we used to look there when I been in there.
Mhm.
So that looks really great.
Yeah.
And they were
Great,
also
Jarrell.
a nice group to work with as well. They wanted to please, but I have to say, the people, I couldn't think of his name, but the people at Gill and Gill, if I ever have a project, an outside project, I want that man on our side. Like, you know, there was no I not dotted, no T not crossed. Money wise, you know, just with some of the changes that needed to happen. I was just very pleased to work with all of them, not no egos colliding. It was really great. And I'm just very happy that we'll be able, you know, we have another classroom since we're already pressed with space, you know, with our meeting rooms.
I was fortunate to go for the last walkthrough as well, and yeah, it did seem like a really good team,
They
and
really are.
and it's really nice to see that space like fresh and bright. And you know, I think last year when we did our walkthrough, you know, it was it's a big improvement, and a big, you know, we saw those before pictures. They're still haunting me, at least, all this before
But that
pictures.
that situation was fixed.
Oh, good.
So,
Yeah, it was like
yeah.
a termite situation over, right? So yeah.
Yeah, Guardian, I have to give them credit. They, you know, you know, they paid for it and they're proactive and they'll continue the treatment regularly. So
I mean, maybe we can schedule a time to all see it at some point.
I think that would be great.
Let's work on that. We can, you know, if you can
I'll
make it,
send it.
great. So
I think that would be great. So Alex stole my thunder. He talked about the author program. It was also on Nancy and Norwalk. And I just want to give Cindy a shout out. Her team does a phenomenal job with all the details, even down to giving out the goodie bags. And it's many new authors. That's their gateway into writing and into publishing. And, you know, things have changed, so it's really hard to get agents. All of that's very political. And so this is just, it's really, I feel very proud to offer this to not even just our community, it's actually the greater Norwalk community. So kudos to Cindy and her team. And so last time Moyne and I met, we had talked about the mayor's dashboard. So I'm glad that it was announced already. I didn't know if I should show it before the city was ready to announce the dashboard. So I'm going to see if I can, I don't have my email up, if I can pull it up just to give you all an idea of what it looks like. And the mayor's dashboard, so each city department, we report out the statistics that the city wants to showcase. And so, and we update it monthly. So hold on 1 second. So Moyne, I don't know if you have anything or if anybody has anything while I pull this up, and I apologize for not having it up already.
oh, sorry, my computer is dinging. Well, on the subject of renovation, I wanted to bring this up just quickly, like, because so you know, there's been the leaks and there's been some other, you know, physical plant issues, and so we, you know, we really need to get a better sense of timing. I know Guardian and the city have been kind of like, their line has been, we're putting this off because of the renovation, we're putting this off because of the renovation. But I do think, I mean, when you have leaks coming down into the building, this is like, you know, we need some short-term fixes. And so so I think, you know, Sherelle is already going to be talking to Guardian about some of these things, especially for some of the short-term fixes. Some things are going to be in that medium range, and so we need some more clarity around, you know, timing. And I know that Jess and Alan Lowe came and talked a little bit about kind of looking ahead, but once the election is over, would really like to with Sherelle sit down with the city and get a little bit more clarity around some of these items, because like the building is kind of falling apart. So And we really need to have a plan as to addressing some of these things and whether to do it like sooner rather than later or
Yeah.
hold off things until later.
Yeah, it
So,
would, I think it would be ideal to have to have an idea of when the renovation will take place, because that's been the holdup. But, you know, I met with our team today, with Mark and with Otis, you know, just to talk about the different things. What happened on Saturday was an anomaly, but we still have the other things. You can see from the list that I sent you, some of the things, you know, have been corrected, but not all. Or some of the things have been kind of bandaged, but the building, you know, we don't know with the leaks. Is there mold? You know, in the walls, you know, under the floors, you know, from where it's leaked. So, you know, we have that front door that with the entrance on Mott Avenue that leaks there, so we don't know what's there. I don't want to go into the long story, but we just have lots of leaks, but one person is not responsible, this person is not responsible, so we really just need to get a handle on it. So I think, I mean, it makes no sense if we're going to renovate like in a year, but if, you know, we can't keep putting it off. So I agree. So, I plan to have a building services meeting with Guardian and with Bill, who I just love, just so we can go over the ADA compliance and just get started. You know, what is Neil's group responsible for? What is our group responsible for? And then, you know, to discuss some of the leaks. So I think it would also be nice to invite Guardian to one of our meetings as well, because I want to go over the list that I put together, you know, with them as well. So hold on, give me 1 second. I'm still pulling it up. Let's see. Second, let's see, what's the mayor's. I see the mayor's dashboard. I'm just looking for the regular dashboard. Here it is. I think this is it. Okay.
you just want to let us know what, yeah, you were starting to talk about what exactly is the mayor's dashboard.
So it's there. I think I mentioned that the city keeps statistics. They have for each department, they have what they want, the statistics that they want to keep. So each department will update monthly, you know, the statistics. So this is, let's see, I just had it up here. So this is what it looks like, what they want to keep for the library. So public computer usage, library events and programs, the library book and video checkout, library assistance to non-English speakers, and the library Wi-Fi usage. So if we click here, we can, you know, we go back to, let's see, 2022 through 2023, and it's a new dashboard, so we had to, you know, repopulate you know, the old information. So people will get an idea, you know, as they look, you know, what's our computer usage like on a monthly basis for both locations.
Is this available to the public or is it just for the city people?
No, available for the public. So I think I shared the article, or maybe in the packet, that they did announce it. So that's why at first I was like, you know, do we want to do this before they announce it? But they did announce the unveiling. So, and then you'll, you know, get an idea of our events and programs, you know, broken down by adult programs and children's programs. The checkout, the download, and the physical checkout.
How does it break out with the main library and so now?
So just let's see.
It's all
The
grouped together?
computer usage?
Yeah, okay.
No. The
Yeah, now I
computer-
see it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let's see, what else do we have? The library assistance to non-English speakers, is, you know, that's all together.
So
And
how do we know that? Like, how do we know what, like what?
so for this one, it's not broken out. This one is all together, but you can see all together. On our stats that we keep, we break it out, but for what they wanted, it wasn't broken out. So what I'm
Yeah.
going to send you for the stats, from the last 3 years, you'll be able to see everything broken out.
Yeah, because this information can be helpful for the expansion, the renovation.
And so then the Wi-Fi usage, which they want annually. So we're doing pretty good.
Yeah, look at that.
And so this is something, that now that it's unveiled, the public, can also see as well.
That's a great initiative.
Yep. And I think that's it for my report. And I want, to give a shout out to Melissa Mastriani, who is a library assistant at the main library. A patron sent a card and a very nice gift to her. Apparently, the family of one of our deceased patrons was just very appreciative of how she handled their relative, and they sent her a card, which I shared with you, and a very, very nice gift to her. They were very touched by her, just her demeanor in helping. So,
Great.
Very nice.
so that's it for my report.
Okay, so before we get to the library cafe, I actually asked Laurel to read a poem. I'm sorry, Laurel, are you still okay? You're still okay. About Divya, that's in a collection, a poetry collection. Of course, you all.
Yeah.
have a
So
bit.
every year the state puts together a Connecticut literary anthology. Ta-da. And it's been published by Woodhall Press, which is a local press. And Lisa Meserol, who was one of the people who was pretty involved with the poetry things that I did when I was poet laureate, wrote this poem. And it's about Divya. And Moina has asked me to read it for you. Cindy's going to put it into the program for the Indie Author Day and have it on display so that people can see too, which I think is kind of wonderful. So it's titled What I'd Tuck Under Your Pillow If I Could by Lisa Meserol, and it's for Divya. The sliver of moon I touched in the poem you encouraged me to share and hung by the circulation desk for patrons to read. Yours was the light I wanted to see when I checked out books, the day a waxing gibbous with you in it. The same weekend of your death, but 11 years ago, a husband shot his wife too. Her last act to crawl to a safe place and call the police to save her daughter. The next day, a friend of mine married. I had to ask the police permission to be in the neighborhood of the crime in order to see her put on her gown. A portal of skylight wedded with her as she walked down the aisle, but the main source of light was her, the radiance of brides on their chosen day, never knowing what triggers the hands they join might pull. Your son, all grown up, running to call the police to try to save you. All the running, the crawling, the saving of what we can keep. The moonlight gratitude I'd slip under your pillow if I could. The world needs more kindnesses, waning without you in it.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, she's a lovely writer.
Oh. So, okay, so Geraldo circulated the RFP, and unfortunately it came out a bit late. So Geraldo, do you want to talk about a plan that and I gave Geraldo feedback pretty late, so that's kind of on me too, so my apologies. So are you there?
He has to unmute. I just sent
You have to
him.
unmute.
Clicking on my, okay, here it goes. Hello, everyone. Yeah, we had some delays too because a couple of us seem to have come down with COVID the past couple of weeks. And, kept us away from meeting in person. But anyhow, I distributed a copy of the RFP today. And what I like and I'm requesting that you do is that all the members of the board requesting that you review the RFP that has been, the draft of the RFP that was distributed, and send us your comments, your recommendations or questions. We're making a commitment to respond to your questions within a day, but we would like to get all your questions and recommendations by next week, Tuesday, the 17th. And we will use that and decide if we need to make some changes to the RFP as it stands. And our goal is to then, send that to you and schedule time for a meeting by the 23rd and, get a vote on the RFP and decide how to move forward to the city with that. You'll see, the changes that are made. You will see we're not comparing it to what was there before, but what we believe that we need right now. Are there any questions?
Yeah, Alex has his hand up.
Yeah, Arada, I just looked at it briefly before the meeting. I think just as a matter of layout of the language,
Huh?
the section about the term of the lease could be a little clearer.
Okay.
Because I think it's sort of, there's a lot in there about what's going to happen after the renovation and what the requirements are for the 1-year term before the renovation. And you may just want to simplify that in how it's laid out, so somebody reading it could have a good
Clarity
grasp.
on it. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask, Geraldo, are you working with anybody at the city on this, or we doing this independent of the city?
And I will hear the others too. But once we have completed this, then we will work with someone from the city. We're using this as the base before to submit
Okay,
to the
right.
city to work with.
Okay, because I just glanced at it briefly, but there was one thing about a 4-month requirement for details, during our construction, which is, I don't think, realistic, that those kind of issues need to be really identified up front, what needs to be in that space. So it's going to have to be the mechanical parts of it, and the space are going to have to be identified through the project itself.
And just so that we're clear, when we do meet, it'll be a special meeting when we do meet, what we're doing is kind of just approving this as a draft from the board to give to the city, and the city will make it there, will review it and make, changes based on their practice. So even a vote is not really a vote. It's a vote to move along a draft. So.
Yeah. Jana, were you raising your hands? Oh. Any other questions, suggestions, comments?
If there are none, please do get us any comment. You can send them to Geraldo, and he'll share them with me and Sherelle, or you can send them to Sherelle and Geraldo and me.
Yeah.
So, okay, if there are no other questions, I do want to make a point. I think, is Tom Cullen on this call? Because I see another number there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Hello, Tom. And
I'm eavesdropping. I was muted.
Okay, but I do want the minutes to reflect the fact that Tom Cullen was indeed present for the meeting, even though he was an eavesdropper. So, okay, so Would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Second,
Okay, all in favor?
Patsy and
Aye.
Allison.
Yep, so, and we'll see you
Aye.
over in the foundation meeting.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.